Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another scene set in Death of a Dark Crusade Season 2. Tonight we set the scene within the Guildhalls, actually within the domain of Giles, funnily enough. On the southern end of the Guildhalls. Quite close towards the Jewish quarter, and as such, quite close to many of the domains of the Assamites. But tonight is remaining well away from the Assamites, and we'll stay quite cozily within the stewardship of the Toreador, as during her stay within the domain, Beatrice, at the court, the pseudo Elysia, as it were, invited Thorvuld to have a chat sometime. Maybe get to know each other, maybe reacquaint herself with the domain, or maybe simply get to know new faces she hasn't seen. Maybe get a bit of information while she's at it. That would be a little bit less discussed. And yes, Thorvuld, you have been invited to a rather nice-looking church within this part of the Guildhalls. It always sticks out. The thing that sticks out about it is the garden itself and the stained glass windows. It is quite. The church is quite small, but it looks more well made than a church of its size would normally be. It looks quite well built and well maintained, and obviously has quite a lot of how to put it. There's quite a lot of fairly expensive decor to it.
I assume it's a Catholic church.
I'm trying to think of. Oh, you have Eastern Orthodoxy. But yeah, this is Catholic.
Yeah. Thorvald's spent the majority of the beginning part of the evening getting himself ready, putting on his finest clothes. He's, he sent one of his ghouls to the market during the day to get him some fresh flowers, or, the sort of just a pleasant gift. And he will make his way to this church, and when he comes in, he makes the sign of the cross over himself, just sort of respectively as he enters the building.
Yeah, Beatrice is really just lounging around right now. Makes it seem
Lounging
a bit
around in the
rough around the
pulpit.
edges. She's not lounging around. She's sitting in kind of quiet contemplation, but she doesn't appear to be in prayer or anything.
Thorvald will slowly approach. He's carrying the flowers in a sort of wrapping of white silk. He makes his way towards her, and he will bow deeply.
She kind of turns her head to you and gives you a fairly warm smile. Um, Let me just look up the sheet real quick, see if there's anything odd about her that you should know. Just in case. Beatrice. There we go. No. Okay. Yeah, she looks down at you, smiles at you quite warmly. She does actually look quite human.
She
Like
like
her
appearance
skin is
4,
her skin
appearance
is
5.
flushed, and she seems to give off the warmth of a human would that a human would. She does not appear particularly vampiric in any way. She appears to breathe and blink and act as a human normally would.
Is she like appearance 4, appearance 5 level?
Sorry.
Yeah. Thorvuld smiles back at her and he sort of offers out the I suppose in modern nights we call it a bouquet, but
Oh, thank you, Master Thorvald. This was very sweet of you. She'll kind of happily take them and just asks, "Where did you get these?"
the market. I had my retainer pick. I said pick something local and beautiful. I'm afraid I am no craftsman like the honoured members of your clan.
Well, I'll pay a visit to. I'll pay a visit to the florist. Surely I'll recognize the flowers. So beautiful that they are.
He smiles warmly. One does not have to be a toreador to appreciate beauty, I have found.
I don't believe we'd have a place in the world if we were the only ones.
How have you enjoyed your stay in Odessa so far?
It's been pleasant catching up with all the other clans, although I've heard the district has fallen on hard times. And the city in general.
Thorvald nods. We've had some troubling incidents. But the city is resilient. It's Canaanites and its mortals alike. I myself am reasonably new to the city and to unlife.
I noticed I hadn't seen you in the city before.
My sire brought me here just over a year's hence, not long after my embrace. It is our wish that I learn to be a functioning member of our society. And to serve in a different capacity to how I served in mortal life.
Hmm. How has your time here been?
He will just sort of move closer to her. He'll sort of indicate to ask whether he can sit down.
Oh, she politely just says that you can sit next to her if you want,
He
or
will.
wherever you really want to sit, really.
He'll sit next to her. I mean, if she allows it. Um, Educational would be my answer. I was a retainer for a long time and only knew life in the bidding of my duties. And I'm learning things, becoming more educated as a person. Primogen Margot is teaching me about court and etiquette.
Oh, that is very kind of her. I've known Margot for only a short while, but she's always seemed to have a big heart.
She was most kind to me on my first day in the city. My affection for her is genuine. A woman worthy of respect. My sire has had a long running relationship with Clan Toreador in other cities, and I've been privileged enough to attend art galleries and Elysiums hosted by the clan. I've never quite seen a painting like the painting of you that there was in that Elysium. Can't quite put my finger on what it was. Almost seemed alive.
My sire's always had a knack for bringing out.
Do you have a craft of your own that you give passion to?
I am. I have taken up writing in recent years, although I used to be a painter as well.
I would enjoy reading some of your writing at some point.
Maybe I haven't been able to build up a particularly large library yet.
Give me time to practice my skills. What language are we speaking in at the moment, just out of curiosity?
French.
French. Okay.
That's always an interesting question, but I think, yeah. But yes, I haven't been able to distribute my works as I would like. Most of that which I give to others is poetry.
I'm a great lover of poetry. I was hoping to one day, perhaps, commission a portrait of my sire to be made. When I've earned enough means. You may think me sentimental, but since being released and going about my duties, I like to have a reminder of her at hand. She's a busy woman, a powerful woman.
I haven't had the pleasure of meeting her.
I'm sure she would be delighted by your presence. Maybe next time when you visit us again, if you do so. I'd be happy to facilitate a meeting.
Perhaps it may be some years before I return. It depends upon the stability of the court in Bera.
You're having your own troubles.
Oh, not us. Bera did, however. I was a resident of Odessa for the longest time. I did not live through the hardships that the citizens of Bera did. It is only in recent months, with the arrival of my sire and myself, that a more stable and benevolent court was established.
What kind of hardships? Did they suffer from the plague as well?
No, but they suffered from the same root cause.
Hmm. He nods thoughtfully.
The prince was not a particularly kind gentleman.
Sometimes kindness is not always a trait that a leader can exhibit.
Well, from what I have heard, this prince certainly did not exhibit leadership.
Both of Thorvald's brows raise.
Such is what the citizens of Bera say, and I trust their word.
Hmm. He seems to ponder over this for a few seconds. I hold no power in the court here. I'm young and finding my way. But I try and make good contributions and balancing effects in the mortal world where I can to help underpin our foundations of our society. My sire and I take the philosophy that some consider the gangrel somewhat outsiders, but I take her example in that I make my efforts to integrate and socialize with all Canaanites and operate as part of a unit. Every Canaanite has their place and their role and their duty to do to make our society function better.
I suppose that depends on what viewpoint you take.
It's true, there are some that would say that some kindred are worth, some Canaanites are worth more than others. Just as some people would say that some human life is worth more than another.
I would argue that life in and of itself is something sacred.
I would agree.
I prefer not to focus on the roles of others or on what we are established as, rather on what I can do.
I'm a soldier. So, in some ways, my position is fixed. But, as I'm sure you saw, there's very little I fear in defence of our prince and the city. Nothing, in fact.
She considers that fairly carefully. She kind of ponders on it. She doesn't seem to particularly challenge it as if to say, I don't believe you, rather than she considers the statement with in a different way. It's not like she's critiquing it, it's something else that's kind of occurred to her. I think it can be important to feel afraid sometimes.
I find that the men and the women who have fear have something to lose.
I think that is also important.
He's not going to talk about his fears with her because that's a path check.
Yeah, it is.
So he's like, I fear nothing, that's the way it's going to be.
I think fear, like pain, reminds us of our boundaries as people. It's important to know those boundaries.
I've been guilty of overstepping a boundary or two in my time. important to be educated.
Yes, it's important to understand. If we do not understand ourselves, then we simply end up doing things we regret. So both are. That is why I believe it important for us to understand both our strengths and our limitations. Not just so we can overcome them, but to understand when we should not. I find some boundaries are not worth crossing.
I've discovered that myself.
How so?
When you're young, when the blood is first in you, you have no grasp yet of time. I was it's easy to be hungry of things that eager to impress, eager to improve, and eager to gather the world up and feed on it like it's a banquet. On knowledge, on power, on sustainability, on interaction. I've gone too far and overstepped my means. I've seen things I never could have imagined of seeing. The mind-blowingly, mind-bendingly, and unimaginable beauty of things, and the deepest horror. Each instance I've survived and educated myself from. But I believe you learn from your mistakes, as you say. It's important to strengthen yourself over time. My etiquette lessons. I was a slave before I was embraced. So moving among high society is not something that I've ever grown to be accustomed to so far.
Well, I'm sure if Margot's eye is upon you, it will go very far. Just be careful. Not to give up too much of yourself in the process. As a soldier, I'm sure you understand the courts are a far deadlier place than the battlefield.
Yeah, he does actually chuckle. Mm. Beauty often cuts deeper than the sharpest blade. I've seen that in action.
It is sad that my clan has made their name on such interactions.
I think it's a. I think it's important to be multifaceted, to be both respected and feared, prevalent and subtle. There have been individuals who have brought shame to the name of your clan, but the clan as a whole holds much respect.
I'm not sure I agree. I find fear brings more resentment than respect. And I think we could do our part to be more constructive as a society. We are far too busy tearing each other down.
I've often tried to encourage my fellow neonates to work together rather than be self-centered. I don't have as much power or as influence as others do. The curfew's been exceptionally trying on everybody involved. But it's there because the mortals are afraid.
I just wonder what came first. Oh well. It's not something I can change, so I suppose I shouldn't fret over it.
Nor I. I just make my own changes in my own way.
If you believe you can do some good, do it.
It's a
You'll
shame
be
you won't be.
wealthier for it.
Well, I can't say I'll ever be a rich man, but at least not in terms of material wealth. But it's never been something I aspired to.
One does not need material wealth to be wealthy.
Precisely. It's a shame you're not staying longer. I fear that Odessa would be much more lifted by your presence.
I hope that part, if any, of my rambling may have had some impact.
What you
But I
made you to.
suppose I am
No.
assuming you needed it. That is quite rude of me.
So I missed that bit.
Uh,
The
she
sound broke out.
Yeah, she just said, but that was assuming you needed it, which is quite rude of me.
I found the last few weeks refreshing, personally. It was nice to have a gathering again. It's been too long.
It has. I hope Odessa gets a new keeper soon. Maybe I'll come back and visit.
Well,
It'd be nice to have these talks again.
if you do, then my door will be open to you.
I'd be delighted to visit you when I return.
Perhaps I will have grown a little more by then. He says almost playfully.
It'll be interesting to see how you come along.
He stands and he says, "Thank you very much for your company. Please pass my regards to your honoured sire."
I will. Thank you for staying with me, Thorvuld.
He'll bow. He'll take a good look of her again because, parents 5. And walking up to the altar and making the sign of the cross once more, he will leave the church.
Yeah, I think we can end the scene there. Thank you, Claire, for playing. Thank you, watchers, for watching. We'll see you all next time.